All right. So here it is. We're gonna split it out. The warfare against Zimbabwean citizens. Okay. It may include the Zimbabwean government, but it is on a minuscule level. The real target is the Zimbabwean citizens, the Zimbabwean system, economic and social system that encourages growth and prosperity in the land. That warfare has been waged on us by other powerful countries. For example, the first one is the United Kingdom. These are the people that are waging a war on Zimbabwe. I told you in the previous videos that wars have historically been known to be military wars using guns and bullets and stuff like that. But I'm saying that because of international conventions and laws that have been ratified across the globe, it's difficult for countries to be engaged in open fire warfare. So they use currency wars, trade wars, and all sorts of other sophisticated means of destroying a people, including biological warfare. See, but biological warfare has been ruled out as well. So you can see that their options are narrowing. So now they come through social engineering, of which I'm saying that Zimbabwe has been socially engineered to become a failure. We have got the spirit of Ubuntu and we've got the spirit of building. However, the one, oh God, listen to me very carefully. I really, really want you to listen to me very carefully to understand this message. That what is attacking Zimbabwe is not necessarily a person, it's not necessarily ZANU PF or Itim Nangagwa or whoever, though they are part of the problem. I doubt if all of them, if most of them understand how they are part of the problem. And the political actors who are being used to destroy Zimbabwe might not even know that they are being used to destroy the country. They might be thinking that they are acting out of some natural reaction, but they do not know that the conditions that have been created to cause them to act that way, to behave that way, are actually orchestrated by a puppeteer somewhere. So I am saying that the Zimbabwean politicians are puppets, all of them. Not to say that Triple C is a puppet of the West and Itim Nangagwa is not. He is also a puppet. Whether he knows it or doesn't know it is another question altogether. But I do believe that the whole political system is a puppet to destroy the livelihoods of everybody else. Therefore, for everybody else to be free, something has to give that will destroy or remove the whole political system. We need a new political system in Zimbabwe. That political system will have to do away with the current one because the current one is excessively compromised by Western agents. They themselves, the political players, this is my accusation to them. They themselves, all of them, the ruling party and the opposition, and everybody else, most of the people that are involved in politics, they are actually part of the system. Unfortunately, the others do not know that they are part of a nefarious system that is created to destroy the people. So some political players might be listening to me, they say, nobody from the West approached me. Of course they didn't. They influenced you. That's why it's called influence. The influencers are powerful. The key ones know what they're doing and they're paid for what they're doing. But the rest of the others do not know. They're just participating, thinking that they're participating whether in opposition politics or in ZANU-PF politics. They are being lied to, being told that they are protecting the liberation, the gains of the liberation war. I mean, what gains of liberation war? Who's gaining at the moment? Just look on the ground. It's Emerson Mnangagwa and his family who have got a stronghold now in the military and in other powerful, important organs of government, meaning that the Chimurenga warfare was just for Mnangagwa and his family and his clan, not for the country. So supporting ZANU-PF on the basis of protecting these Chimurenga strike. You see, you begin to vocally support it ZANU in front of people because we just don't want, maybe because of ego, because you don't want to admit the truth that there is nothing that you're supporting here. Or if it's not ego, it's because of fear. You're fearing that you will be attacked if you are not seen touring the party line. But what I'm saying is Chaka Wara Chinuchi. There's nothing like really there. And the reason why it's like that, I want to point this fact that again, we don't want to put too much blame on those people as well, because some of them do not even know what they are doing. The guys in Zanzibar, they don't know. Some of them think we total push Kamari, we want to be, in deals, but they do not know that they are actually being used by the agents of the West to destroy their people. And the Western powers want to see the people being destroyed, not ZANU-PF. I think I'm the only one who keeps on saying this thing, that United Kingdom and the United States support ZANU-PF. They don't want ZANU-PF to get out of power, because if ZANU-PF gets out of power, and then a government comes in that wants to build Zimbabwe, the country will be free and it will be built, and that's not what they want, because they are engaged in a warfare against the peoples of Zimbabwe to enslave Zimbabweans. Because once Zimbabweans have got a government that loves them, we will no longer be slaves. We will not be working as nurses in UK. We're not gonna be waiters and security guards and whatever and housewives in South Africa, but we will be running an economy with good quality jobs, and we will command respect in global power and global geopolitics. And they do not want to see that we might actually become more powerful in the region, just like they're attacking the Black South African, another group of people that I'll talk about another day, that is also being attacked, just like the Black Zimbabweans. Because remember, in this region, we've got one of the most uh, important resources in the next economy, talking about electric batteries, the minerals that are used in those technologies are in Zimbabwe, DRC, in South Africa, you know, if even the minerals for the oil technologies like steel manufacturing, talking about gold and diamonds and all of those resources. If we are a nation that is properly run, we might demand those products, products of the minerals. And because we will demand that, we will begin to charge higher prices, or because of more demand, prices just go up because there's more demand vis-a-vis supply. And if the prices of these commodities go up, it means we become richer and we begin to control this part of the world, and would could possibly control even the world, because we have the resources that the world needs. So for them to have access to these resources in Africa, they have to make sure that the African people do not develop. One way of causing the African people not to develop is to attack their leadership and their systems of governance, so that whatever system of governance is in place in that area will make sure that it destroys its own people. Okay. Have you ever seen a child of Zimbabwe that grows up and desires to destroy other Zimbabweans? No. But all of a sudden, when they become ZANU-PF and they're in power, they are destroying their own people. Why? Because the powers that be that want to destroy Africa influence these people to be there like that, or seek people or the weakest of us in the community, the weakest amongst us, and push them up there and make them leaders. You know what I'm saying? They would not take someone who has got a good heart for the country and put them on top. In fact, they will look for people with good hearts for the country and try by all means to crush them. Their system is very elaborate. It's very, it, and you wouldn't see them walking in the streets or saying anything. All you will see is your fellow people in the streets doing stuff. And some of those of your fellow people themselves don't even know that they are being used. That's what it means when I say you are hit by something that you do not know. Or when I say you do not know what hit you, but you just notice that you are hit, but you do not know what it is. So I'm telling you, it's engineered. And I know that this message is very difficult for Zimbabweans to understand. Even if I were to say it, Zimbabweans won't believe. They will say, Mkomana chete chete and yes, salvation. I don't have a problem with Mkomana chete chete, except to say that he is actually part of the whole ring of a lie. The whole thing is a lie. The whole political system in Zimbabwe is a lie. Whether it's Chamisa or it's Mnangagwa, it's Mugabe, it's Grace, it's what, all of it is a lie. Those people that are in power do not deserve to be there. They should not be there. They all know that. But they are allowed to be there by the enemies of the country who wanted them to be there because they know that with them in power, the country will not develop. Okay, the country will not go anywhere because they are devoid of knowledge and understanding. So what they do is they attack the people who've got the knowledge and understanding and make sure that they really never see the light of day. And all of those that are just talking, just fueling hate, fueling divisions, are given access. And I say that even this whole uh, division within Zimbabwean politics is actually orchestrated. The Zimbabweans themselves ordinarily are not divided. They are not. But the social engineers, these agents who come, they do this thing for it, so that the country is a pariah. And the hard thing about this message is that even though it's a true message, it's actually the message that when people are here, they will say it's a lie. And that is how a people, oh God, it's how the people are destroyed. A nation is built when they come to the deeper waters of what life is, of what a nation, what being a nation is, nationhood is. And I'm afraid in Zimbabwe we've not come to that point of realization that we are at war. We are constantly at war, and the war is constantly evolving and taking different shapes. We have come to a point of thinking that we are not at war. The world loves us. It's only ZANU-PF who hates us. No, the world hates us. Probably ZANU-PF doesn't even know what's going on. And ZANU-PF is an agent of the global powers, but does not even fully understand how it is an agent of those global powers. And the global powers are happy that ZANU-PF does not even know how it is an agent of imperialism. To understand, it's a very convoluted, tricky, social engineering skills that are just like, it's a weapon that is out of this world. A weapon that the West has been using against Africa, but Africa doesn't even talk about it because doesn't even know. We don't even know how that weapon operates. But you see the devastation, you see the results. That in South Africa is a black people that are suffering. In Zimbabwe, it's a black people that are suffering, and they even left Zimbabwe and become slaves, sold themselves willingly. So you see, these are the effects of the atomic bomb that has hit the country, that has destroyed the social structure. And you people don't even notice it, don't even talk about it. You have got no time to talk about it because the part of the attack is to keep you obsessed with elections. Election. But you all know deep down what's going to happen. It is going to win the election. It's going to rig. And you will complain about the rigging. And you want to talk about 2028, 2028, 2028, 2028 until 2028 comes, even if it is dead or alive, someone else inside of PF will come in, they will vote, he will win. We start begin talking about 2033, 2023. The same thing happens. You start screaming about 2038, 2038. Same thing happens. You scream until it's year 3000. This is a constant battle. Stupidity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. It is stupid for me to look forward to elections hoping that there's going to be some kind of development. No, it's not elections, it's a realization of the war that is waged against the country and understanding that the people, the source of the war, let me just not, let me not beat the bush. The source of the war is London and Washington. It's a resource war, a war for resources. It's a war to determine who controls the resources. And at the moment, those that control the resources know that the resources do not belong to them. They belong to a certain people. And that people had to be destroyed as a people. Robert Mugabe succeeded in the 80s and 90s in educating his country, and the Zimbabweans became too dangerous for those in the world, and therefore they had to be destroyed as a people. Whether Robert Mugabe understood the nature of the war or not, I'm not certain. Whether Chiwenga himself, who is now the vice president of Zimbabwe, by that time he was in the military. He was part of the military junta that told Robert Mugabe to remain in power after the 2008 general elections. Whether that military junta understood their positioning in this warfare, because this warfare is not about the gun you are carrying. The gun is your mindset, how you think and what you do. What political decisions do you take? So ZANU PF did not understand that in the Lancaster House conference, it wasn't complete victory. It was just another 10 of events during a war, which is still being waged on even today. However, the response to that war is what Zimbabwe has to be talking about. I'm not advocating for the removal of ZANU PF per se, but rather I'm advocating for the removal of the political system and or a rethink, those that are in power to rethink, to reorganize their thoughts on the nature of the warfare. Not to think that their war is against their enemy, is their opposition, and the United States is using the opposition to fight ZANU PF. No, the United States is using both the opposition and especially ZANU PF to fight the people of Zimbabwe. So if the people in ZANU PF really are serious now about engaging in this warfare and winning this warfare against against their enemies, they need now to realize that we need to strategize as a country. We need to think outside the box of ZANU PF. Because once you keep on thinking of ZANU PF, that is when you're going to lose the war. These guys in the West are very clever. They will not tell ZANU PF the truth that if you want to maintain proper power in your country, you don't base it on one part. You don't maintain your power. Now, let me put it this way. Let me address this message to the people that actually run Zimbabwe, the leaders, not just the president, but the ones that keep him, the president, in power. whoever they are, those ones who are really engaged in this war, they need to understand that kuti pamberi neZANU-PF, relying on ZANU-PF is actually what the enemy wants you to do, so that you will destroy your own political system and all other systems in the country. It corrupts all other systems if you think that having one power and party, or one party in power, is a sustainable thing to do. You need to be agile. You need to be able to remove ZANU-PF from power and tell the West, ZANU-PF is out of power now, remove the sanctions. They will have no choice but to remove the sanctions, because those sanctions are not against ZANU-PF. Don't get me, don't get it twisted. They've got no point. They've got no problem with ZANU-PF. If they really have got a problem with human rights, those people, they'll be sanctioning Uganda right now for passing a law that kills its own people on the basis of their sexuality, but they are not. It means that it's a nefarious war. So these guys, this is how you are hitting back on them. You change political leadership. Remove ZANU-PF. I'm talking about you who runs Zimbabwe. There's a difference between people who run Zimbabwe and ZANU-PF. ZANU-PF is just a container that they use. Change that container, remove that container and put something else. Call it whatever it is that you put in. And but it's not called ZANU-PF. It removes some ZANU-PF faces and brings in some fresh faces. Whether it's Chamisa that you want, as long as you can still have a control of the situation. Put Chamisa in or whoever it is and see how. But then this thing I'm saying, it will depend whether if you are not compromised or not. Because if you're already compromised, it doesn't matter even if you put Chamisa, you will still destroy the Zimbabweans. But you should understand also that destroying the Zimbabweans is how you lose. I told you it's a very convoluted way, very difficult to understand. The fact that you oppress your own people is what they want you to do. The West will come and say that they are afraid, they are against ZANU-PF because ZANU-PF is against its people. No, they actually want ZANU-PF to be against its own people. That's what they want. That's the nature of the deal. So how you win this war? General Chiweg and your friends were trying to fight this American war. You change government, number one, rebranding it. Number two, whatever comes in, you don't become against your people. You promote the prosperity of your people and your institutions. That which they are complaining about, do it. That's how you destroy them. Because after that, they wouldn't know what else to do, what else to say about you. And when you have got your systems that are running, all this money that you have, that you are banking overseas, you can bring it to your own country to understand and develop your own country, develop your own people, and become a powerful player in the region and even in the globe, so that it's difficult for them to attack you. Oh, General Jewel, you don't win this war by attacking your people, but in fact, the way that you shield yourself in this war is building a robust economy and a strong society that the United States and Britain would look at and fail to attack, because we can be much stronger than them when you are a united front. When a country is united and a country is improving in different aspects, it's difficult for these Western people to defeat us. But once you resist that and try to destroy your people, that's exactly what they want. Let me tell you something. The policymakers in Washington that are attacking Zimbabwe don't want Zimbabwe to have a relationship with America. They don't want Zimbabwe to respect human rights. They don't want ZANU-PF to care of power. All those things that they complain about are exactly what they want to see in the country. So defeating them is actually giving them what they say they want. Because the truth of the matter is that what they say they want with their mouth is not what they want. And what they want is what they're not saying. So give them what they say they want, and you will see them crumble. As mighty as they are, they will crumble, and they will not be able to invade the nation. They will not be able to have victory over us. Then we as a people will begin to be established as a people. Now that establishment is got no rhetoric of being anti-ZANU PF or anti-Triple C, is anti the system. You must understand that you must stop being married to ZANU PF. You must being married to ZANU PF is like an investor who gets married to a stock that is underperforming, doesn't get out of the trade until the stock goes to zero, until you lose all of your investment because you are married to a stock. Don't be married to a political party. If that's what those that run the country need now to be sophisticated in the way that they think. Think outside that box of ZANU PF, because the Western governments have destroyed ZANU PF as a brand. Therefore, you also throw it out and come up with something new. Japan succeeded. Tell me, when the Americans occupied Japan and they succeeded, do you know it was the same Japanese that were enemies of America? The same Japanese were prospering under the auspices, under the occupation of America. But here's the thing: Japan was occupied by America, succeeded. Germany occupied by America, succeeded. But because they are occupied, they are not able to excel. You see what they did with Nord Stream 2 when they bombed Nord Stream 2 to to stop the economic prosperity of Europe and Germany. That was clearly the Americans who did that, because the Europeans themselves are occupied by the Americans. Something which Donald Trump didn't understand. When Donald Trump was speaking about complaining as to why is the United States paying more NATO, why are the NATO members not paying much? Donald Trump didn't understand that NATO is a US way of dominating Europe. And Donald Trump didn't understand that this World Health Organization, the United Nations, all of those organizations are proxies for the United States hegemony and power around the world. So Donald Trump, in his naivety, he came to dismantle that American power through those institutions. And so that's why he was a one-term president. That's why they removed him, because he was undoing the American dominance. Now he wants to come back now, and now they're charging him. All the Stormy Daniels charges is very like, who cares about if Donald Trump had sex with Stormy Daniels? We don't really care. He can still be a president. But it is because now they wouldn't want someone who doesn't understand the American mindset, the philosophy of how America conquers the world. So Donald Trump thinks that America is spending too much on aid or too much on NATO, while it's the American military establishment thinks that we have to spend more on NATO than other countries so that we can have Europe under wraps. So right now, America has got Europe under wraps, Japan, and yeah, and other countries similar to them that were occupied by the Americans. So these countries they experience economic prosperity for a while, but it is curtailed. Talk about Japan. Japan went through a a depression in the late 1980s, and up to date their economy is not recovered. But they had success in the 40s, 50s, and 60s in their manufacturing hub because of the US occupation. Germany also, after the Second World War, uh, the Marshall Plan is what really revitalized the European economy. But you see, it came with the US occupation of Europe. Do you understand? So that even if Europe succeed, it will never supersede the United States. It will succeed owing to American supervision, but will not overpower United States. So when the United States speaks about these European countries as our partners, they're not really partners. The Americans are on top. These are their dominated territories. So countries like Zimbabwe that seek their own economic prosperity find themselves in a very hard position to understand, because in order for you to to defeat the Americans, your own domestic policy has to be better than the Americans' domestic policy. Your own human rights record has to be better than the American human rights record. Because if it not, they will destroy you from within, and they will send you through a tailspin that will crush you and destroy you so much that you will ask for their help. Such that if they come and help you finally, their help will include occupation. You will be occupied. You will succeed economically, but that economic success is going to be kept by them. They will decide how far you would go. You would go far, but not very far, but not beyond them. But see, in 1980, Robert Mugabe opted for the British occupation, but the British were very soft. The occupation of the British wasn't about military occupation, but it was influence. The British had influence on Robert in the 80s and 90s. They gave him a lot of money. He did a lot of social, he built a lot of houses, you know, affordable housing, schools, and education system and stuff like that. Then come the 2000s, the land invasions that angered the British, and therefore they began to show him their other side. So, so now we have become a pariah. And here's the tricky part. The only way, okay, maybe not the only way, one of the ways of getting Zimbabwe out of being a pariah state is actually uh, submitting to the American pressure and being occupied. Now, the occupation, when it happens, it will bring success. It will bring relief. People will be happy, everyone will like it. But however, as it happens to Japan and it happened to Germany and Europe, there will be a cap to your success. Understand it. There is success, but there's a cap. If you want to excel without American occupation, you sure have to govern your country better than the Americans govern their own country. And that I find it has become very difficult for many countries. One of the reasons why it has been difficult for many countries to achieve that is because most countries are led by despots, dictators who are not interested in, who don't have a heart for the people. Okay, they, they simply put, they don't belong there. They don't belong in politics. Unfortunately, we have them in politics, but they don't belong there, because politics is a place for public workers, people who have got a passion to serve, not people who use the positions of authority and power for self-interest. Unfortunately, these countries, because they are led by people like that, it is easier and even more justifiable for America to occupy them. For the sake of the people, those people will have to come under American occupation at the end of the day, and it was because you failed. You're failing to become better, so somebody else must come and become better for you. So in the short to medium term, it's a good system. All the countries that America has occupied have actually done better. Their populations have succeeded after they have accepted American hegemony. But as I said, that there is a cap as to how far you can go. Your freedoms, even and your sovereignty, is going to be limited. Okay, because you are under some kind of occupation. But if you are free, okay, if you're not under American occupation, you'll you'll be engaged in a warfare with them, and that warfare will destroy your social fabric unless if you are very wise enough to understand how to reverse the negative effects on your social structure, and how you can organize your political system such that it's not based on one party winning. The, the system must be so good that it doesn't matter who becomes president, will still be have the country intact. Be, Perhaps those that are in power, maybe like people like Emerson Mnangagwa, people like okay, so something tells me not to say. There's a point I wanted to say, but someone tells me not to say it. So I don't know how to continue if I'm not gonna say that point. So, but mm, I guess you see that we have to create a system that is impermeable. You have to live within your system and also to believe outside your system, to watch your system and see if how it works, how it works when you are outside of it, and be able to be like God. You know, God Jesus came and walked in the earth with people. He was like a human being. At the same time, God is outside the province of man. He is in a realm where man, no man is, and watching everything from outside. So, so you should be able, as the rulers of the country, to do that, so that where you are outside your system, whatever happens within the system, you still have control, and you understand the pressures from outside, what they are seeking, and why they are doing what they are doing, and how you can protect your sovereignty. As I told you before, people are only as sovereign, or countries are only as sovereign as they're able to defend their sovereignty. Otherwise, it will be undermined. Whether it is a military undermining of your sovereignty, or it is when your social fabric is destroyed through outside influences that will seek to crush you from within. And economies and countries that are not aware of this strategy used by Western countries on poor countries are on a downward spiral. The African Union itself is a behemoth that does not serve African interests, but is sponsored by guess who? The European Union, which tells you that most African presidents are agents of the European Union, the very same European Union that they always bash on TV. Yet in reality, the European Union is sponsoring them and keeping Africa as a continent in underdevelopment, because Africa has chosen the leaders who are not thinking right. I was gonna say Africa has chosen the wrong leaders, but they will say no, one of the wrong leaders were democratically elected. Well, which means that your brains elected to think wrong. Your brains elected not to think for the people. When Europeans allow you to engage in corruption and then you send your money to their countries, their banks, essentially, it's another way that they steal from Africa, these Europeans. They actually make sure that the corrupt politicians bank in Europe, invest in Europe, but the resources are also gone to Europe. So what is left in Africa? Absolutely nothing. So all of this stealing, it is done through African leaders. Understand? It's African politicians who take the resources of Africa, steal the resources. So this is what happens. The resources are taken from the ground. They are sold to Europe. Europe brings money. That money, the politicians steal and send it back to Europe. They will put it in their bank account in Europe, but the money is in Europe, so it's in Africa. And the resources are in Europe, not in Africa. And who aids that is the African politicians So I'm saying that if the African politicians are arguing with me and say that they're democratically elected, therefore they've got the right to be in power, then it means that their brain cells are the problem. Their brain cells are the problem, because you cannot take African resources, take them to Europe. Europe gives you the money, and you take that very same money back to Europe again. Are you thinking straight? And then when you are losing and you've got no investors, and you're suffering, and then Europe begins to dictate terms on you, then you cry foul. They will dictate terms on you because you denied your own power. When your own power came to you, what you did is that you took that money back to Europe instead of keeping it within the continent and building capacity within the continent. So that when they tell you what to do, you say, no, you've got your own capacity to defend yourselves. But that kind of thinking in African leaders has not materialized. As I said, that the leaders that we have, the current crop of leadership, is the wrong people. So one of the problems Africa has is the wrong people in leadership. They need to be changed. If we change them, then Africa will become a better place. So it's not just about Zimbabwe. This attack is across the whole African region. Unless we find, until we find the leaders that understand, that grasp this this attack, how it is like. You see, so if these African leaders don't want to be changed, they have to change the way that they're thinking. Either they change, we as African youth, and another thing, as African youth, we must start thinking as Africans and not think as individual countries. Remember that the fragmentization of Africa was done by the enemy, also another way of making us not to be able to fight together. But when we come together and say we're taking the continent as a whole, as African people, we're taking the continent as a whole, we've got this group think, Afro think. And for us to have an Afro think, we can exist outside the spaces of our governments. You don't have to go through a government institution to be able to formulate an intra-Africa relationship, because as we have noticed that it is these governments that are used by the outside people to destroy us, the peoples of Africa, the people, not the governments. The governments of Africa are not under attack. They are actually the agents used by the Europeans and the Americans to attack the African people. So we as African people have to come up with our own reserve power, our own grouping, to group as people. Don't tell your government about it. It will be us, until the government recognizes that we as the people are not going to let them be fooled by our enemies, by the enemies of the people. It's high time the governments begin now to engage the enemy of the people on the side of the people, not on the side of the European enemies. Do you understand? So this is this new type of being woke or black consciousness, to be conscious of the fact that the political system has been uh, tampered with so that it destroys you as an African living on the continent. So once we master that and begin to think in terms of Africa, not just in terms of your own country, also in terms of Africa as a whole, and have this African think tank, because our solution is the same, and our problems are the same, and our enemy is the same. That's how we will really become this great behemoth that we are supposed to be in Africa. The politicians are the crosswinds that are causing it difficult for us to land this plane. But however, as strong as the crosswinds are, we're going to land the plane, and you will see Africa rising as a whole. And this time around, this rising is not coming from the current crop of politicians, but it's gonna come around because of the new Afrithink that we will have.